Hey guys, it's me, Cali. Today I am super excited to be showing you what I've created for this month's Gypsy and Witch project. I made these boho inspired denim pocket bags just in time for festival season or a trip to the store. You could use these to hold your cell phone and your wallet, or a tarot bag. Each bag can be used 4 different ways, and I had a blast creating them. These are all upcycled materials and some Happy Mail presents that I received, and I think you guys are really going to be inspired and want to do some of these yourself. So I hope that that's true, and if that is, stick around and we're going to create a bag and I'll show you the rest. And when you're done watching this video, go check out my gypsy sister, Miss Rita Marie, and check out the links below to join us over at our Facebook group, The Gypsy and the Witch, where we do new projects monthly and encourage you guys to join along. So I hope you're inspired. I love these, and I will see you in a little bit. Okay guys, let's get started and I'll show you what we're going to use. The basis for our project is denim pockets. I save all my old denim. I even ask other people for their old denim, and today we're going to be using about 2 pockets worth. And also, we may use some of the length of the leg to cut out straps for our bag. So, an old pair of jeans, and in addition to that, I also have some scrap fabric I'm going to use. Also, maybe to incorporate into a strap, or to make the other side of our flap that's going to cover. So we have some options. So scrap fabric. And speaking of options, next to me here is my sewing machine set up, and I will attempt to show you me using it during this tutorial. But in the meantime, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can easily complete this project with a needle and thread. If you have basic sewing skills, you know, and I'll show you a basic running stitch, you can just use a regular needle and some thread and stitch away. I've also used plain old fishing line, monofilament line, which is also very strong and easy to sew with as well. If you have no sewing skills whatsoever and don't want to, you could attempt this project with hot glue, but I wouldn't recommend it because I don't think it will wear well, and I wouldn't recommend it. But you probably could attempt it, as well as any other kind of a fabric glue. I do use tacky glue for embellishments and things like that, and I'm sure it would work in a pinch to glue fabric on something that's not going to be washed. So that, and then I do have here my cutting mat, and I use this all the time. If you don't, I love to use it with my rotary cutter and a large ruler. It just makes life easier. You don't have to measure any of this stuff. You can just totally wing it and go intuitively if you'd like, but I do like to, you know, for the sake of the tutorial, we are going to be measuring. And if you don't have any of this, you can just use a regular tape measure and a good old pair of scissors to make marks on fabric. Also, I like to use, this is just a piece of children's chalk. You can use tailor's chalk, or I have these Tailor water-soluble pencils that will write on fabric. You could even use a marker or something if you weren't going to be, if it wasn't going to be shown. So that, and then some things that are optional. You know, I do have some straight pins in my pin cushion here if you want to use when you're sewing, but it's not necessary. And then also for some strap options, in addition to the fabric, you may want to use something like jute twine, or I have this leather cording. I actually picked this up at a garage sale. You know, anything to make a strap out of. You can braid cord, you could use ribbon, Just really let your imagination go wild. You have lots of options there. I'll show you a few examples. And then as far as embellishing the bag itself, you could, if you choose, use fabric paint, or even these, this is some fabric paint here. This is not fabric paint, this is just regular acrylic paint, but if you're not going to be washing the bag, it shouldn't be an issue. It's up to you. And also I have these media misters, which are fun to play with, so you can actually embellish and decorate the fabric itself if you'd like. I have a homemade heart stencil here, piece of cardboard. If you are going to be decorating a pocket, you'll put it in the back so the paint doesn't seep through. I also have a large assortment of embroidery flosses and threads like that. You can do embroidery, anything that you can think of. I'll show you, I have a little assortment here of things that I might want to embellish with. Here's an iron-on transfer that's like a peace sign. I have some heat and bond applique paper, which turns any kind of a fabric into a iron-on applique. And so we may do a heart out of that and actually iron on our pocket. I have feathers here you can use, because once the bag's done, the fun part is decorating it. I have a tassel that I got in some Happy Mail. You could use little rhinestone bling, bells. I have old jewelry. I mean, just anything you can think of. Pieces of chain, buttons, crystals. You know, I grabbed a lot of different things. This is an essential oil charm that I made. Anything I reference in today's video, I'll link below. You know, crystals, like I said, you know, auction jewelry, old bells, ankle bracelets. You know, I haven't worn this stuff in forever. Beads. So you get the idea. Buttons. Buttons are always fun. Let your inner hippie out. Wave your freak flag high. And just get really creative with it. So those are just some options I wanted to show you. Today we'll do one bag, and then at the end I'll show you a few other ones that I've made, just showing these examples. So the only other thing I don't think I showed you that we may need is an iron. So I'm going to use this to do our applique patch. You can use it to iron your fabric. It also helps when we're making the straps. So let me just get things cleared off here and we'll get started. Super easy. I'll be right back. The first thing we're going to do is cut our fabric, and we're going to cut 2 pockets and then 2 pieces of fabric for the flap. And I'm going to use 1 piece of denim and 1 print. And then we're going to cut some fabric for the straps. Okay, so first thing I do is cut the leg off, and I've done that on this side. And you can see I've kind of drawn down where I'm going to be cutting. And you don't have to cut through to the front, because you can always use this fabric. You're just going to be cutting this out, okay? So whether you use your scissors or a rotary cutter, I've already done that on a different pair. And I'll show you the rough cut. Okay, so nothing fancy. I didn't measure anything. I did leave this little piece here at the top above the pocket though. It's already reinforced, and I like to just, you know, use it to sew. So like I said, you don't have to measure at this point. You do want to leave a little room on either side, and I'm going to cut down each side and then across like this, and I'm going to leave it longer on the bottom because we're going to make some fringe. But you can do this however you want. And like I said, I'm going to choose to measure mine, and I'm going to do 2 inches across here and here. Like I said, we'll just leave this alone. And then 3 inches on the bottom, all right? So I have my big ruler here, which is not necessary if you don't have one. And I'm just going to lay it from this point. Let's see if you can see this. From this top point down. I'm not going to follow it this way, although you could if you want, but I'm just going to go straight down. So 2 inches from this point all the way down. And if it's a little off, that's okay. Sorry that this is kind of upside down, but same thing on the other side. 2 inches from that point. Save all your good denim scraps. Denim can be tough to work with sometimes. I've broken, sewing machine needles by going too fast, so take your time. And then, like I said, the bottom, I want to do about 3 inches, so I'm going to measure from this point down. Let's see, how do I'm trying to show this to you upside down, and it's really not working out. But I'm just going to go 3 inches each way. All right, 1, 2, 3, from the bottom of the pocket down. And you can always trim things up later. It's not an exact science. So 1, 2, 3. Just about cut it off right there. Again, that's fine. All right, so there's our basic shape. Now, if you want, you can kind of fold this in half, and you can see it's not exact, so I'm going to just trim it up. All right, and you can just, actually, you know what, I'm not even going to bother because we're going to be sewing it. So I already have 2 cut out. All right, and then to make our flap, like I said, I'm taking a scrap piece of fabric, and this is where your iron will come in if you want. I've already done this, but just for showing you, I'm going to take the fabric and we're going to take our pocket that we just cut, and you want to put this wrong side down. Now it's hard to tell with this fabric. It's beautiful on both sides, but I'm going to just lay this out, and I'm going to roughly trace around it, like that, kind of. All right, and then we're going to cut that out, and that's going to give us this. All right, so then I wanted, for a backing piece of fabric for our flap, I did the same thing on a piece of denim. And again, once these are sewn together, we'll trim it up and you'll never see these edges. So we have 2 pockets, and then this is going to be our cover flap with a piece of scrap and a piece of denim. You could do any combination that you want. And the next thing, that if we're going to be doing any cutting, we're going to do our straps. Now, like I said before, you could choose to easily braid some cording, and I'll show you some examples at the end. You could use ribbon, the jute twine, anything like that. But I like to show you how we're going to do something that looks like this. And this is just a tube of denim, okay? And all I did was take that leg of denim and I cut out 2-inch strips. Now, you can make these as big or as small as you want. And if you don't want to do what I'm going to show you here, you have a lot of options, you guys. You could leave them like this and just braid 3 strips together. You could fold them over like this and sew a piece of ribbon down, or just let it fray and not worry about it. There are many options, okay? But to make this tube, all I did was take 2 pieces of fabric, and I'm going to show you a hand stitch here. So I cut very long strips like I just showed you, all right? But I'll demonstrate on these little strips. Pretend these are long. We're going to put right sides together, and And on my sewing machine, I would just sew down each side like this, or like I said to you before, and this is not a sewing tutorial, but I'm pretty sure everybody can thread a needle, hopefully. I need my glasses. And there's a knot at the end of my string. I've doubled up my string, and I'm just going to pretend I'm a sewing machine and poke it through. Alright, and in and out, you guys. That's it. Like this. Back and forth. You could even bunch it up if you want and go like that. And like I said, as a last resort, if you have absolutely no desire to do any sewing, you could attempt it with hot glue. So it would work, you know, for lightweight wear. That's a very sloppy stitch, but there are plenty of tutorials, I'm sure, on YouTube. So once you've stitched your two pieces together, and like I said before, imagine that they're very long, okay? We've stitched this long snake together. Then, once it's done, you're going to flip this inside out, and you're going to have to push it up. Now, I'm talking like this. Say this isn't already flipped, right? You're going to have to take your tube and go like this and push the fabric up from the bottom through the top. And I've used the end of a paintbrush, or here's a seam ripper, you know, anything to help you get that through. And then when it finally comes out, and it can be a pain in the butt, you guys, and the narrower you make your straps, the harder it is. So I want to say this is probably 4 inches worth of fabric. I've pieced together a bunch of denim. But when you finally get it through, you have this long tube that looks like this. And you can further embellish this. You could embroider on here. You could paint on here if you wanted. Add some ribbon. Add some other coordinating fabric if you want. You can. I have other strips here that I've already cut. I may want to just kind of fold that over, and we can lay it down here. All right, and stitch down the length of that. All right, I think we might have to do that for this project. So once we have everything cut out, we're going to set things aside, and then the first thing we're going to do is go back to our flap. Okay, that's what I'm calling it. It's the covering of the bag. So we have our 2 flap pieces, right? Our denim and our print, and we are going to sew these together, right sides together, okay? So I'm putting the good side of the fabric with, what did we decide again? The good side of the fabric, all right? And I told you this hasn't been trimmed yet or anything. And this is what it looks like here. So we're going to sew all the way around this, leaving this top part open, okay, just like a pocket. So we're going to sew down here and do about, you know, a 1/2 inch, 3/8 inch seam allowance, I don't know, whatever you want. Just sew down the edges, not too close to the edge, all the way around, down here, across, here, and up here, okay? So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to attempt to show you on my sewing machine, and I'll be right back. So like I said, we put the right sides of the fabric together, and I've just added some straight pins along the edge here to hold the fabric in place. We're going to leave the top open, and we're just going to stitch down the whole edge of this fabric all the way around and get back up to the top. I've already threaded my machine. My bobbin has purple thread. My top thread is purple. I'm using a cotton poly blend, and let's go. When you guys get to a corner, you can leave your needle down, lift your foot up, and turn your fabric, okay? Like I said, this isn't a sewing tutorial, but just so you know, I'm going to continue all the way around, and I'll meet you back here when this is finished. Okay, here you have it. And like I said, you can see around the edges, it needs some trimming, and I'm going to do that. I'm just going to trim everything up to match pretty much the purple. And after we're done trimming it, we're going to turn it inside out. And that is going to be our cover. Okay, so I think now we have two sides, and these bags are reversible. There's actually 3 ways you can see them, but I think we're going to embellish this piece right here and leave this as it is. But again, you guys, you can paint on these, you could stencil on them, embroider, put buttons. Now would be the time. And if you only want one side to show, be careful not to sew through the back, okay? We are going to do an applique heart right here, but I'll get back to that in 1 minute. So I'm going to trim these and then flip it inside out, set it aside, and then at the same, when we're done with that, I'm going to get back to our strap here. Now, I've measured for a crossbody bag to be about 46 inches. Do your own measurements. If you want this as an over-the-shoulder bag or, you know, a waist pack, however long you want it. But this is 46 inches, and I could leave it like this if I want. You could wrap twine. You know, I went through the options with you guys. But what I decided to do, I cut another strip 2 inches of this star fabric, and I'm going to just, this is where my iron's going to come in handy. I'm going to fold it in like this on one side, and then fold it over like this, okay? And like I said, you can, you know, safety pins are your friend. Not safety pins, straight pins. You can use these to hold your fabric in place while you're trying to work with it. So I'm going to do this all the way down this length, and then I'll iron it so it's easier to work with. And then we're just going to put it here. This is, you know, just what I've decided to do here. The length of this, and I'm just going to stitch down the center of this the whole length of the strap. So you have a lot of options to do what you want, but that's what I'm choosing to do. So I will meet you back here when the strap is finished and our flap, the strap and the flap are finished, and I'll show you how we're going to do that applique quick and easy, and then we'll continue assembling. Okay, so here we are. Everything's sewed around except for the top, like I said, and I trimmed it up nicely. So we're just going to flip it inside out and go in with your finger and kind of go around the edges, make sure everything's as it should be. Okay, now we'll set this aside for 1 second, and I'll show you what I did with the strap. Like I said, I took that star fabric, and then I went in, I didn't like how it looked just plain, so no project is complete without some purple. I just took some purple ribbon and went down the center. Do whatever you want. The other side is just plain. Set that aside. Now is the time to do any embellishing or decorating on your pockets if you want. Okay? You can, like I said, embroider, paint. The sky's the limit. Applique. Same thing with this. All right? Any view is going to show at any one time. You'll be able to reverse this bag around. So I have decided to, for this one, I'm going to leave the pockets alone. And like I said, I have different examples I'll show you at the end. But we're going to leave these two alone for now. And I want to put an applique on this denim. And I had initially thought about using this red fabric. I picked this up at a garage sale. But I've changed my mind and I'm going to use coordinating fabric to what I used on the strap. So that's this star fabric here, and I've just ironed it. Don't make a mistake and iron on your cutting mat, you'll warp it. So I have a cutting board and a towel that I use. I need to get a small ironing board. But anyway, so we're going to do some easy applique, and we're not going to do any sewing applique. I'm going to use this really cool Heat and Bond iron-on adhesive. I used this in a project last year. I think it was my Boho Peace flag, and it's really cool. It's just paper that we're going to iron on this fabric, and then I'm going to use the stencil to cut out the heart, and then we're going to iron that onto our flap here. And I'll show you how this is going to work. Like I said, I have the iron on medium heat, and I just have a heating board, a cutting board, and a towel here. And we're going to take the back of our fabric, and this paper has a papery side and a shiny adhesive side, and we are going to iron this adhesive side down. Super simple. All right, no steam. Just kind of go back and forth all over your paper. I'll put a link to this in the description box below. It's really versatile. So I'm just going to make sure it's nice and good there. Really, you only need it as large as the area you're going to cut out, obviously. Okay, so that should be good. And then, ideally, you want that to cool down. So we'll take that, and then I have my stencil here, and I just cut that out of a piece of cardboard, actually. I am going to use a pen because it's not going to show through. So use whatever you want, but we're just going to trace out a heart. You could do a peace sign, you could do a star, the Om sign, anything, a flower, a mushroom, a butterfly. You get the idea. Alright, so that's that. And then I'm using an old pair of scissors just because there's paper here, but we're just going to cut this out. And after we cut it out, we're going to remove the paper that's on the heart, and then position that onto our flap. And I've decided to do it on the denim portion, and then we're just going to iron that on as well. So it's really cool. Save this, don't throw it away. Here's our flap, right? And here's what our heart is going to look like. So we're going to remove this paper and then position our heart and then iron it on. So let me put this pad back here, which is just a towel. And like I said, you could do this anywhere. I'm just eyeballing this, but we'll remove this paper here, which comes off very easily. And I hope you can see, yeah, you can, how shiny that is. Alright, so how about right here? Does that look good? What do you think? I'm looking at it upside down. Okay, it doesn't have to be that serious. And then we're just going to iron over the top of this, okay? All the instructions are on the back of the material. It says press and hold iron for 6 seconds. So we can do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then it said you can move it. Okay. I'm going to let this cool. And how simple was that, you guys? All right. You could embroider around the edge, further embellish it, however you want. I'm just giving you the basics and a base to grow on. So, you know, here you have it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is take our other pocket. Actually, we have two here. All right. And so this is where we're looking at. We have one completed cover flap, and then our two pockets and our strap. All right. So we are going to take a back pocket, and we're going to lay our strap, okay, with the right side of the strap, if it matters to you, facing down like this. Okay, so it kind of follows the inside edge of the pocket there. And again, if you want to use a straight pin to hold it in place, just to get your bearings, by all means. All right. And leave a little overhanging here at the top, because we're going to be sewing right across this. And you want to make sure, like I just noticed that, you want to make sure that your strap is on the inside edge there, okay? You don't want it hanging out. No hanging out. You could also do a drawstring closure, Velcro, a rope. You know, I'm just showing you one way. My sister used to make denim handbags when I was a kid, and she had her way, and I just thought it was cool with the pockets. Okay, so we have our straps there, all right? And then we're going to take our, not our second pocket, we'll set that aside, but our flap, all right? All right. And essentially what we're going to be doing is sewing this like this. So this is here, and if I fold it up like this, so I have the open edge at the top here, and I'm just going to sew across this. All right? Now, when I'm done with that, then we're going to add our other pocket, all right? Well, actually like that. And it gets a little tricky just because we're going to turn things inside out, but you guys can handle it. So you see that? I put my straps on. The outside of the pocket's here. The straps are following down the inside edge here. And then we have our flap, which I'm just going to sew like this. All right. Actually, we'll get it, make sure that you have it kind of in, so when you flip it over, you don't want any of this showing here. So we're going to kind of do this. All right, fold your edge. So I hope that made sense. That's what we're going to do. We're going to fold our edge, and we're going to sew it, and I'll be back, and we're going to attach. Okay, I'm sure I thoroughly confused you with that explanation, so I think I'll just show you. Here is the inside of our pocket, and like I said, I pin the straps design side down, and I actually move them a little closer on the inside here, not so close to the outside edge, and I also have them under this lip here. So we are going to be sewing across the top here, and I'm probably going to go right under this edge, and I've also pinned our flap to the back. So we're going to be sewing our flap, and there's our pocket underneath there. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to go really slow because again we're working with denim and there's a lot of layers here, so take your time. If you want, you can hand sew this, but I'm just going to get it started, and then I'll come back and I'll show you. Okay, and you want to reinforce those edges, which is just on my machine. I'm going to go backwards for a few stitches and then forwards again. And you could just put extra stitches as you sew by hand as well. Okay, so we're going to go all the way across. I'm going to make sure that I'm grabbing this back edge here too at the same time, and I'll see you when that's... Okay guys, this is what we're looking like. All I did was just sew across the top, and same thing with the straps. I reinforced them, and now we are going to add the second pocket. So we're going to lay this piece down with the bottom pocket facing up, just like that. Take your straps and take them from the back over like that. And then we're going to take our second pocket here and put it face down. All right. Now I'm not going to show you me sewing this because I'm going to need my hands and I'm going to need to do this without a camera in my way, but what I'm going to do is sew across the top here and then sew down each side. Now when I sew down the sides, and what you can do, I'm going to sew the top and then you can fold this up, right, and take advantage of the pocket that's down there, and you can kind of tuck your fabric in there if you want, or just tuck it out of the way. All right, and then you're going to sew down each side. Leave the bottom open. All right, so like I said, take your straps over the back there, lay this second pocket face down, sew across the top, and then being very careful not to sew your flap or your strap, you're going to sew down this side, and then same thing, watch it over here, this side, and we're going to leave for now the bottom open. All right, so I'll see you back here when that's sewing. Okay guys, I apologize. I seem to have lost a few minutes of footage. I'll just tell you instead. I sewed down the sides, and we'll flip it right side out. And this is the part that I lost footage of. I decided to add some ribbon on the inside here. So that's what I don't have. I added this ribbon and I'm letting it hang down either side. Okay, so here's our bag so far. All right, it can go like this. It can go like this. Or it could go like this. All right, but what we're going to do next is just sew across the bottom of the pocket here. And I'm going to do this right on the outside. I'm going to sew right here and follow the line of the pocket all the way to the edge. And then what's left here, we're going to cut fringe. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do. Sew like that. I'll meet you back here and we'll cut some fringe. Here we are. And you can see that I just did like I said. Now, I didn't show you in this video, but if you had wanted like an extra bigger pocket, you could just leave it open at the top, hem over the edges, and then make a big pocket, and then you could use this extra room. You could even line it, you know, but I just wanted to keep it simple, but you know, there's lots of options out there. So that's that, and next we're going to cut our fringe, and I just have you could use a piece of cardboard, but I have a small grid ruler, and I'm just going to place it in between the bottom here. Now you don't have to do this, but I'd rather not cut off my other fringe as I'm trying to work on this. And I'm just going to do it with a pair of my scissors and shears. And the first cut I'm going to make kind of off center, and I'm just going to go up to right below where we sewed, okay? So I'm just going to literally cut straight up and grab the next piece. Don't do it too close to the first one or you'll cut it off, and you're just going to continue all the way around. I like to start at one side and go that direction, and then I'll come back and go this direction, and then we'll do the back. So let me do that off camera and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, all the fringe has been cut. I think it looks so cool. And now the last step is to embellish. And you know, there's so many options. I'm going to show you a few more examples. I think for this one, I'm going to keep it kind of simple. We'll leave this back pocket alone. And this also, and there's our heart side. And I think right here, which will be an inside pocket at some point, or an outside pocket, I want to use, I have this big sun charm, and I've had this for years. It was for a necklace. I think I'm going to just sew it on there, and I'm going to use my monofilament string because that's super strong. And then I just have some beads and maybe some of these little chains that I may embellish the ribbon on the side with. So let me do that and I'll come back and I'll show you. I have 4 other ones that I did and I'll show you those too. So give me just okay guys, here you have it. I'm gonna call this one done. What do you think? I went ahead and obviously sewed the sun ornament, if you will. I sewed it on this underneath lip so it's kind of hidden, but you can still get into the pocket, no problem. And it'll hang nicely like that. So each one that I show you, I'll show you all 3 ways that you can use the bag. So here's this way with the fringe and our strap, which I love every time I look at it more. I never know when to stop though, you know. I want to just keep on going. Okay, so for embellishments, I used the ribbons that I had incorporated and I just put on some beads, an assortment. These are clay essential oil beads that I had made, wooden beads, jewelry I deconstructed, and all I did was put a drop of the Alene's tacky glue on some of the feathers, wrap them with the ribbon, and kind of push the bead down onto the shaft of the feather, okay? And same thing on this side. And then with the other strings, I just kind of let them dangle. And I added some of that suede lacing. And, okay. So that's that. Pretty simple with the fringe. You like my fringe? And there's this piece. Okay, so that's one way. And then if you flip it over, you have that beautiful applique that we did. And I look at this and I'm like, oh, I want to embroider more, but you know, these could be continual works in progress, right? So there's that side, and then if you open it up, it's just the plain pocket again. So you have the pocket on the front, pocket on the back, and if you want, so like that, and then this way. And you, like I said, you could pin jewelry on here, you could put buttons, anything you want, you guys, all right? So this is our first finished bag. I'm in love with it. What do you think? Let me show you some more. And then you tell me which one's your favorite. So that was number 1. In no particular order, I have this one. Okay. This is number 2. And very simple. I just took a scrap of an old dress I used to have, that same purple ribbon. The strap on this one is actually a belt loop. And I just left it kind of frayed, and you can actually unbutton it. I just thought it was cool to leave the button on the waistband. You could sew this smaller if you want, but I kind of like it this way, and with age and use, this will get more frayed. Okay, so that's the one way of looking at it. And then the back side is just a plain pocket, which I love how that looks. That's what inspired me from the beginning. And then We can open it up here and use it this way. And this is some groovy trim I got in some Happy Mail, Flower Power, okay? And then on the back of that, I have this beautiful batik fabric that I also got in Happy Mail with just a simple ribbon on the bottom. Okay, so that's that one. That was number 2. And I really just kind of dig the plain, very little embellishment look, but it's nice to have options, and you could change it with your outfits, right? Because I'm so coordinated like that. Okay, that was 2. Number 3 is the first one I did, and it may just be my favorite. I'm going to show you this from my favorite side first. And this has a lot of embellishments on it, and that's how you probably would know, but let's see. Okay, guys, look at this. All right, now same concept with the bag. Everything's, you know, the pockets. Oh, I didn't mean to show you that yet. Sneak peek. I used a silk dress that I used to have that was falling apart, and it's still, you could see it's like, if you look at it, it'll rip, but I like that worn look, okay? So I just used that as my print fabric. This, again, is an essential oil charm, and I just made a copper spiral out of some wire, added that to some beads, so that's my dangle for the front. And then you can't really see the fringe down here. And the embellishments, same thing. I did flowers, feathers, and beads, and this was an old necklace I deconstructed and hung. I didn't do exactly the same on both sides, but mostly. And then I incorporated that suede lacing into the handle. And this is just what I told you. All I did was braid the lacing, and that was really easy and a lot less bulky to sew over. So on that charm, there's also a back to it. And this was an old earring that I had gotten. And so that's that look, the front, okay, I guess. And then I already gave you a sneak peek here. Here is a peace sign. Now this pocket I sprayed with those distress inks that I showed you before. And I used that purple, I believe it was Alene's acrylic paint. It's not fabric paint. I took a chance, and I liked the way it came out. So there's a peace sign, and on the back of that, if you will, is it was a plain denim piece, and I thought it would look really cool if I just put some buttons that I have. You could put your favorite bands, just anything. So I thought this was in the spirit of Woodstock, and I could definitely use this as a festival bag or just running around with errands. It's totally big enough for your cell phone and your keys. Yeah, so peace sign and the buttons, and the back is just a plain pocket with a little bit of fringe. And again, this is my favorite side, and I prefer the spiral charm. So there's that one, number 3. And then number 4, I'll show you, is, you know, they all have a plain pocket side. And this strap is a variation of the one that we did for the other bag, but I just used the star material and then put a purple ribbon on it. So that's our strap. And then on the other side is an iron-on applique. And I also got this in some Happy Mail, and it was perfect for this project. It says peace, love, and happiness. And it was just an iron-on applique. I think I showed you the packaging for that before. Yeah, I did. And it was super easy, and it worked out great. So I love it for this project, okay? What do you think? And then on the inside, another plain pocket, and the star fabric again, and I just put a non-functioning button. Now, if you want, you could put a little cord on the bottom here and wrap it around, or have the cord come from the back and put a button here if it's important to you that you have secure closure. But this is a big enough flap for me. It's going to be close to my body, so I'm not worried about, you know, for security reasons or anything falling out. The pockets are deep enough. I have deep pockets. So there's number 4. And then the last but not least is another favorite of mine, and I think you guys will agree. I'll show you the plain side first. This was a more designer pocket, if you will. I'm definitely a Levi's girl, but probably picked these up at a thrift store or my daughter's or something. And I decided to just leave that embroidery that was already there. So there's that side. And for the cording, I just did that leather suede lacing and just left it like that. In hindsight, I would have put some beads on this too, but I didn't. Put some fringe, and then on the other side, which I love, I made my own tassel, and I just took some of the scraps that I was working with and wrapped them around a pencil. The pencil was here, and then I just took some twine and wrapped it around the base of that and pulled it off, and voila, tassel. I was totally inspired by one that I received in some Happy Mail. And then I put some of the beads on that have patchouli oil on them, so this smells amazing. And this charm. Okay, and the best part about this, you guys, well, I'll let you see, is on the inside is the same. It was obviously from the same pair of pants, so same design. And then I have this really cool fabric that used to be a dress. Okay, and look what I did to the bottom, you guys. This was a ring, and I cut off the back and sewed it on. And then my favorite part, I sewed an old ankle bracelet to the bottom of this, you guys. Look at this. You can see it better with the denim. I used the acrylic thread, the monofilament fishing line, so you can't really see it. And I just was able to sew right through the chain. And doesn't that look amazing? I love it. And again, I love this tassel too. So use your imagination, see what you guys come up with. I would love it if you tag me in anything. I will insert some pics here. Don't forget to go check out my gypsy sister, Miss Rita Marie. Check out our links for our Facebook group below. And I would love to see you guys over there, okay? So peace and love, and we'll see you very, very soon. Which one was your favorite? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? Let me know. Talk to you guys soon. Take care. Blessed be.